Hello, everyone. We are now call the Committee on Environment, Climate, and Legacy to order. Let the record show that it's now 3:05 on Tuesday, March 10th, and we do have quorum. There will be remote testifier as well. If there are members that testify from remote, we do ask that member state their name and the city and state where they're joining us from. So we have 3 bills on our agenda today. We're going to do a little rearrangement because we want to call our esteemed guest. The first time Senator Clark will be in this committee. So he's walking in now. So the item number 2 will be the first one on the agenda, being that he has to go to other committee right after this. So, Senator Clark, welcome to this is your first time in our Environment, Climate, and Legacy Committee. So let us have it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm uncertain if there's a hazing ritual that I'm supposed to go through here, but I'm sure you all will let me know. Not here. Prior committees, Senator Lang was certain to provide that for me. So thank you all. Today I'm bringing before you Senate File 1980, mattress recycling grants. And Chair, I do have an author's amendment that was published ahead of time that I would like to get brought in before I do my testimony.
Senator Kunesh, would you move the A1 amendment to delete all? Okay, all in favor of the A1 amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. So back to you, Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Mattresses are one of the most challenging items in the waste stream. Local governments deal with the cost and logistics of them every day. Bulky disposal, equipment damage, landfill space. Well, most of the materials inside of mattresses are actually recyclable if infrastructure exists to process them. This proposal creates a straightforward product-based solution. A modest $10 fee at the point of sale ensures the product helps fund its own end-of-life management rather than shifting the cost to local taxpayers or already stretched thin waste systems. Or as Senator Howe has talked about in the past, ditches in which folks might have thrown them in the past when he put together his study first in 2020. How do we make sure that we're getting them to the right spot? This structure prioritizes local communities. 75% of the revenue flows directly back to counties and cities based on population, giving them predictable funding to run or build recycling programs without having to compete for grants. Ultimately, this bill is about building a practical recycling system that keeps bulky waste out of landfills, recovers usable materials, and supports local recycling jobs while using an administrative model that the state already knows how to run. And with that, Chair, I have 2 testifiers, and I believe we have a couple others signed up as well to speak on the matter.
Thank you very much, and we're going to stay on to our 2 minutes rule. So try to keep your testimony short and less redundant. Thank you very much, and go ahead, state your name for the record.
Kevin Engdahl. Go ahead. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Kevin Engdahl. I work for Emerge Community Development and its subsidiary, Second Chance Recycling. We are currently the largest recycler of mattresses and box springs in Minnesota, and last year we recycled nearly 90,000 mattresses. Our business also employs over 100 people per year exiting incarceration. Our experience comes from operating mattress recycling programs across the state and more recently from an LCCR-funded pilot project that tested mattress collection systems throughout Minnesota. These pilots have been very successful and helped us to understand what works. One important lesson is that a modest recycling fee paid at the point of sale can provide meaningful support for the system without paying the entire cost of end-of-life recycling. We've also learned that price matters, but consumers are willing to pay a reasonable fee when convenient recycling options are available. Collection systems also differ between rural and urban communities. Densely populated areas, curbside collection works very well, although it is more expensive. In rural areas, convenient drop-off sites at transfer stations or collection facilities tend to work best. We also know that illegal dumping is a real cost for local governments, and no program is going to eliminate it entirely. In St. Paul, for example, mattresses are collected at no cost, yet there is still illegal dumping. But we have seen that very high disposal fees do have an impact on that issue. This legislation reflects what we have learned in these pilots. It creates a small recycling fee at the time of purchase that helps the system function more efficiently. It doesn't attempt to cover the full cost of recycling, but it helps grease the skids, if you will, so the system works while keeping the fee to the consumer reasonable. Mattresses are one of the most recyclable items in the waste stream, but one of the hardest to recycle economically. This bill helps close that gap. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next testifier,
Sean Dolan.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm the general manager at Second Chance Recycling. Kevin described what we have learned through some of the new and expanded pilots programs in the metro area and around the state. These programs have been built around what logistically works best for specific rural and urban populations throughout Minnesota. Some of the examples, counties such as Olmsted, Blue Earth, Dodge, Waseca, and Rice truck semi-loads of mattresses to Second Chance for processing each month. And these are not insignificant numbers. This new area that we've worked with in 2025 generated over 12,000 mattresses that were recycled from these county drop sites. Counties throughout northeast Minnesota work directly with True North Goodwill in Duluth for mattress processing. Becker County supports the surrounding counties in northwest Minnesota with recycling services. And Lyon County also offers recycling services for counties in southwest Minnesota. Last year, Second Chance recycled over 9 million pounds of material that would otherwise have had gone to landfills and incinerators. Mattresses are highly recyclable products through proper dismantling. About 94% of the material in a mattress is recovered and reused. Examples, steel from the springs are shredded and used to manufacture new steel products. The foam, which is commonly recycled into carpet padding and cushioning material. The wood is ground and reused in biomass fuel, specifically in downtown St. Paul. Also used for landscaping products and pet bedding. And the fiber, which includes cotton, shoddy, and pillow top, are used in filtration products and industrial packaging. Unlike many recycling processes, mattress recycling is very labor intensive because each unit must be dismantled by hand to separate the material. That means recycling mattresses not only diverts waste from landfills, but also creates meaningful jobs in the recycling economy. Programs like ours demonstrate that mattress recycling works. The funding structure proposed in this bill would allow more communities across Minnesota to access mattress recycling and increase the amount of materials we can recover. And we thank you for your consideration.
Perfect timing, thank you.
Got the bell.
Okay, next I'd like to call Vice President of Minnesota Retailers to come up, and those, Mr. Dolan and Mr. Engel, if you can take a step back and sit there. In case we have questions later, if you're not in a hurry, stay put for Q&A following all the testimony. So I'd like to call Mr. Will Hagan, and Director of Environment Policy for the Chamber, to come forward.
Chair Herr and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Will Hagan, Vice President of Minnesota Retailers. Our members range from small independent stores to regional and national retailers serving customers across Minnesota. Let me begin by saying we respect the goal of this bill. Expanding mattress recycling and keeping bulky waste out of landfills is a worthwhile objective, and retailers support efforts that improve environmental outcomes in our communities. But the approach in this bill raises serious concerns, particularly the $10 point of sale fee placed on every mattress and box spring sold in Minnesota. That fee will be paid directly by consumers at the register and collected by retailers, even though retailers have no role in designing or running the program. In fact, the proposal got worse as it was amended. Earlier versions include a producer fee. That provision was removed, leaving the entire cost of the program to be paid by Minnesota families. In other words, the amended bill singles out Minnesota shoppers to fund the program. At a time when Minnesota is already feeling squeezed by the cost of living, this proposal adds another mandatory charge at checkout on an essential household purchase. A mattress is not a luxury item. It's something families buy when they move, when a child needs a bed, or when an old mattress finally wears out. And under this bill, every one of those purchases would come with an extra government-mandated fee. Retailers are also concerned about the operational side. The bill requires stores to add the fee, separately stated on receipts, collect it from the consumer, and remit it to the state through their tax filings. That means new compliance requirements, new accounting steps, and more complexity at the register. There's also a timing issue the committee should consider. The legislature already approved and funded a $2.8 million pilot program to test mattress diversion and recycling in Minnesota. And as we understand it, that pilot is still underway today. Yet this bill moves ahead with a permanent statewide fee on consumers before we even know whether the pilot was successful. Supporters sometimes describe proposals like this as extended producer responsibility, but this bill doesn't come close to that model. True EPR systems are producer designed and producer funded. This proposal instead relies on a state program funded by fees collected from consumers at the checkout counter. As written, this approach shifts the full cost of the program onto Minnesota shoppers while asking retailers to administer it. That's unfair to consumers and unfair to retailers. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. And, Mr. Moley.
Chair Herr, my name is Andrew Morley, and I work for the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, a statewide trade association representing more than 6,300 businesses and 500,000 employees across the state. Thank you to the committee and Senator Clark for the opportunity to testify in opposition to the DE amendment to SF 1980, a bill imposing a new mandate on business and a new cost on consumers. SF 1980 requires retailers to assess a $10 fee on each mattress sold. Like any other mandate, these fees will only increase its price. The funds from the retail tax are to be used for grants to counties and to subsidize non-governmental infrastructure. This legislature created mandates and cost increases on Minnesota businesses over the last several years, including a new extended producer responsibility program for paper and packaging. The MPCA is currently implementing the paper and packaging law as we speak. That program is facing implementation challenges. For example, a preliminary needs assessment set the program back weeks, leading to a large overhaul of the needs assessment and therefore causing the program to go past the statutorily created deadline. Further, the state has already spent $2.83 million in 2023 for a nonprofit to test and implement methods to expand mattress and furniture recycling statewide as part of the 2023 LCCMR legislation. The recommendations were due on June 2025, but we do not yet have that final report. We should allow this work to be completed first, see what best practices exist, and then make an informed decision about how to proceed, rather than creating a whole new or different strategy with unknown costs to consumers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moley. We have a remote testifier from the International Sleep Product Association. If you're online, turn on your camera and also your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome. Great. And state your name for the record.
Thank you. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm Allison Keene. I'm the president of the International Sleep Products Association, which is your trade organization that represents producers of mattresses, retailers, and suppliers to the industry. I'm also the president of our 501c product stewardship arm, which is called the Mattress Recycling Council. The Mattress Recycling Council has 10 years of experience running statewide product stewardship organization and programs. So we've been in California, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and then we just started last year in Oregon. So I think folks have already stated the problem, including Senator Clark, very well, and I won't reiterate that. We see the problem, we understand the problem, we're extremely supportive of mattress recycling, but as some of the other testifiers said, we don't feel that Senate File 1980 fits the bill, as it's not a complete statewide product stewardship program. In fact, under SF 1980, all consumers would be paying a fee, but it wouldn't be a statewide system. And it doesn't mandate that the state give out the grants. It only mandates that jurisdictions may apply for them. And even that, with the amendments, the preference would be to larger areas in the state. In contrast, we would really like to see a state-run program for collection, recycling, convenient collection, recycling, and transportation of all mattresses in the state. In the last 10 years, we've recycled 17 million mattresses. Our program and our bill is actually moving in several different states. As a matter of fact, I can say that Virginia just passed it today, so that'll be our 5th state, as long as the governor signs it, so I don't want to jinx myself. But we're happy to continue the discussions in Minnesota. We would love to see the program there. We're actually part of a Product Stewardship Institute dialogue right now, looking at, sort of the next generation of mattress recycling stewardship programs, and MPCA as well as others are part of that dialogue. So we actually hope to be back to you as soon as next year, as a matter of fact, with one of our bills. And with that, I'd say we want to bring it there. We don't think this is the correct vehicle, but I'm happy to answer any questions about our program in the other states and the work that we're doing with Minnesota to bring it to the state sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comment? Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the bill author, when you put the bill together, if you put it together and somebody else didn't, I guess, because we do that around here, did you take into account some of the testimony that was given by the testifiers as far as the studies that we've already funded in the excess of probably $3 million, and we haven't got any reports back? Did you know about those?
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator Green. Did I know about them? Yes. Did I take into account some of the pieces? Not all of the pieces. I think that's a fair point. What I've appreciated about all of their testimony is they all agree there is a problem and there's multiple ways to get there. I think my approach is one good way. Their approach is another good way, and I'm trying to find a way to make sure that we're keeping the mattresses out of the ditches and out of along Shepherd Road as well. So I think this is a good step, and as I chatted with this gentleman this morning and this gentleman earlier today, we're committed to continue the conversation if this isn't the right final approach to get this done.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Green.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, but I wish you'd have done that before you brought the bill. But do you have any estimates on how much this will generate? The reason I ask that, and I hope you have that, is because with the testimony that we've heard, this is taking a chunk of money out of the economy. And $10 might not seem like a lot, but you're across the board, it'd be nice to know how much it is, because that's money now that's not going to go for other household expenses.
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Hurd. Thank you, Senator Green. I don't have that precise number, but I can share with you that to recycle a mattress is $25 to $35 a pop. And so this is asking for $10. It does not, therefore, offset all of the local costs. So currently, this is being paid for by, in a variety of ways, including property taxes, including your waste fee, but it is being underwritten by local jurisdictions versus the consumer.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Green.
That brings to my next question is that, we've got recyclers out there. And so the question is, do they get any revenue back from this? What is their profit? What is their loss on these mattresses?
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Hurd. Thank you, Senator Green. So for the folks in Becker County, in Duluth, and in Lyon County and Marshall, Minnesota, as well as in the Twin Cities, they are nonprofit. And so it is provided with local funds to make up that deficit to ensure that they are not, running in the red, if you're, so to speak, in the nonprofit. They are asking they always have to go and get money from the local municipalities or local county to fill the hole.
Just one more question, Mr. Chair, and then I'll let other people talk. It didn't really answer my question. Do they make any money off the recycling at all? Do they sell the product? Do they give it away when they're done? Because it sounded like they had a lot of materials they're getting out of the mattresses.
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator Green. I'm sorry to have missed that part, but yes. So like with the steel, it is then sold off to folks who buy recycled steel, as well as, so the foam goes to companies that make carpet. Wood goes to St. Paul Biomass here for the Twin Cities facility, and then fiber is sold of packaging. All of that, my understanding is that they are basically break even. I can get more information and send it to you, Senator Green.
Thank you. Any question from members? Senator McCune.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this bill, Senator Clark. I actually took a tour in Duluth of the mattress recycling facility there, and I would have to double check to make sure, but that is my understanding as well, is that it may come close to sort of paying for itself, but that it is not some sort of money-making venture. So I'm really glad that, I know that I think that Senator Howe had a bill previously back in 2021 trying to address this mattress recycling issue. I'm really glad to see that you're working on this, and I look forward to supporting your efforts. So thank you for bringing this.
Senator Drukowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for bringing the bill, Senator Clark. Are you familiar with an organization called Bridging in the Twin Cities area?
Senator Clark.
Chair and Senator Drazkowski, I believe I volunteered with them many, many years ago.
Senator Drukowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senator Clark. Well, Bridging is a nonprofit organization that essentially gets money from government and nonprofits and buys mattresses for people. So you've got counties and other organizations, other units of government that are essentially buying mattresses for people. And I've been told that in our most populous metro areas that there are back alleys that are piling up with mattresses. And I'm also hearing stories of people who get free mattresses and then decide to move and then get another free mattress. Have you looked, Senator Clark, at that? If the government is buying people's mattresses for them, by the way, I didn't know mattress welfare existed, but in addition to all the rest of the very numerous and generous welfare programs we have here in Minnesota, we also have mattress welfare. And the reality remains that when people are responsible for their own stuff, they take care of it and look after it. It appears to me that part of the problem might be contributed by the fact that people are not responsible for their own mattresses and government is instead. And that might be part of the mattresses piling up in the back alleys in Minneapolis. Can you weigh in on that, Senator Clark?
Senator Clark.
Senator Drazkowski, I think I care about the mattresses piling up, whether they're in Mazeppa or Minneapolis. And I think this bill provides a good opportunity with the $10 fee to provide a little bit more responsibility for for the mattress to ensure that it gets through the entire waste cycle. So from purchase to the end point. So my goal here is to make sure that we're keeping the mattresses out of the streets and the coulees and the alleys of Mazeppa as well as Minneapolis. And how they get to the alley, I think this is a way to help ensure that the recycling system ensures that they get to the right spot from the alley to our recycling places.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Drukowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Senator Clark, we don't have a mattress problem in Mazeppa. Everybody's got their mattresses in their house. There's no back alley with mattresses stacked up on it. As a matter of fact, if one neighbor saw another one dumping their mattress out, they would be taken care of by social pressures that would take care of it in a hurry, and that person would actually be personally held accountable for it. And really, the users, the people who need mattresses are the ones that should be accountable for it. Instead, here we have another redistribution of wealth, Mr. Chair, that is financed by a new tax on mattress sales throughout the state. So as we look at this, we may have the taxpayers of Minnesota having their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time, having to pay not only for mattresses, but also then to pay for the collection and recycling of mattresses, which they don't even use. For people who obviously are not being responsible for their mattresses, we need to find, instead of taxing people who are responsible, hardworking people in this state, instead of taxing them for the behavior of others, we need to hold those people, those others, accountable. And Members, I find great frustration in the fact this reoccurring theme here that we're seeing in this state government, where we are not holding the people accountable that are causing the problem. Instead, we're holding other people accountable for the problem that a different group of people is doing. And that's why this bill is failing, Senator Clark. In my mind, it's a failed effort. Well, Mr. Chair, with that, I would move an amendment if I can. I would like to strike the word fee in each of its occurrences on line 1.15 through 1.19. And I count 6 occurrences in there, and replace the word fee for Mr. Stanley with the word tax in each of those 6 occurrences. Because indeed here, we have a tax that's being somehow camouflaged to be something it isn't. Although we do have in statute a place that says a fee is a tax. In this case, it is going directly to the Commissioner of Revenue, being collected through Chapter 297A, the sales tax chapter. And it is a tax. We should call it a tax and not pretend it's not a tax. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that amendment.
Senator Drakowski move an amendment, strike all the words, yep, and I will pass to council to reiterate and maybe specify where exactly those, the change will be before we take on the motion.
Mr. Chair, members, Senator Drakowski is moving on page 1, line 15 of the amendment that was adopted to delete the word fee in both places, insert the word tax in both places, and to do the same on line 16, delete the word fee, insert the word tax. On line 17, delete the word fee in both places and insert the word tax in both places. And finally, on line 19, delete the word fee and insert the word tax, Mr. Chair.
And to the bill author first, any remarks before I ask Senator Drakowski to motion, and also I see a hand from Senator McCune as well.
Thank you, Chair. I believe the common nomenclature throughout that we normally use for this type of a cost is fee. So I'd encourage that we keep the word fee within the bill.
Senator McCune.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question about how this setup, the sort of vision for how this would work with the $10 recycling fee, how this is different from the petroleum fund bill program that we heard, either last hearing or the hearing before. There's a special fund set up, and then there's a sort of temporary extra charge on per gallon of gas, and that fund is kept expressly for cleanup, especially at like mom and pop gas stations. If, a gas station owner just, way out in rural Minnesota decides, they're done and they leave, there might be like a leak in the tank and they might not even know about it. And so in order to help with those situations, we have this special fund, and we heard that bill and we passed it. And I didn't hear any complaints about it from my colleagues on that. I actually think that when I had conversation with advocates for that bill, my question was similar to Senator Drakowski's comments, which was this is then the public taking on a cost for what I believe, especially in the fossil fuel industry, probably should be a cost borne by the industry, which is a trillions of dollar industry in the world that already gets a lot of public subsidies and help. And so just one more instance of us bankrolling them and socializing their costs. So, but I supported that anyway, because I think overall, it's a good idea for us to make sure that we pull together sometimes to make sure that our waste is taken care of in a responsible way, because we all benefit from that. And there's a myriad of reasons why a mom and pop gas station might end up with some leaks, and I'm fine with us all coming together to help them out. So I'm just wondering what the difference is.
Senator Weisenberg to the amendment, Joukowsky amendment, as the same matter as.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair. Well, I think if you gave me that bottle of water and I poured it on the floor and I threw this pencil on the floor, it might be harder to clean up that bottle of water than this pencil. It'd be the same with the oil versus the mattress. It might cost a little bit more money, and it's going to be harder to clean up that spill than the mattresses are a little bit easier to clean up. But just to her comment, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, any members to Joukowsky amendment? If not, yes, Joukowsky. Senator Joukowsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is clearly a tax, and I don't know that I was here during the time you dealt with the petroleum thing, but that should be called a tax too. And if it wasn't, we should bring a bill and amend it to properly call it a tax. It is a tax. This particular proposal sends the money right to the Commissioner of Revenue. It's called out on line 1.18 and fully utilizes the machinery of Chapter 297A in order to collect this tax. Let's be accurate and honest and call it what it is. It's a sales tax. It's an additional sales tax specifically for mattresses. It appears on the receipt. It's all called out there, just like every other tax, sales tax is called out on a receipt. Let's be honest with the people of Minnesota. Let's be honest with ourselves. If this is a tax, let's just call it a tax. That's what this would do. Encourage your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I ask for roll call.
Okay, roll call is requested. So those who are for Senator Joukowsky amendment, say aye, and those who are opposed, say nay. A roll call.
Chair Hurd?
No.
Senator McEwen?
No.
Senator Green?
Yes.
Senator Joukowsky?
Aye.
Senator Hauschild?
No.
Senator Hoffman? Senator Johnson Stewart?
No.
Senator Kunesh?
No.
Senator Lane?
Aye.
Senator Weisenberg?
Yes.
Senator Hoffman?
Okay, there's 5 no and 4 yes. So motion does not prevail. Senator Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the testimony, we heard a lot of different numbers about how many mattresses. Senator Clark, do you know actually how many mattresses are sold or donated or given or granted, however you want to say it? Do you know how many we're talking about in the state of Minnesota annually?
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Hurd. Thank you, Senator Lang. If it's okay, I'm going to phone a friend because I did have that number and I did not bring it.
Okay, do come forward.
I did hear several different numbers, so I'm just trying to get a grasp on it.
Mr. Chair and the committee, we believe there's approximately 600,000 mattresses and box springs sold annually. This is based on information that we received from the mattress industry several years ago. However, current research would suggest that the number is about the same.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And do you know, I assume it's not, obviously it's not going to be 100% of that, but do you know what the number is that it's recycled of the same 600,000?
Mr. Chair and committee, don't know the exact number. You know, I can tell you ours is 90,000, and we are the largest. So, so I would say there's, if I were to guess, I would say there's at least 150,000 that are done, that are recycled.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so as I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, you know, the recycling program seems like a great idea. But probably the thing that gets to me is like there's really no teeth. I searched through statute looking for mattresses, and we have laws requiring crib safety, and we have laws about how much PFAS is in it. actually the condition of mattresses, actually. And we also have a law that needs to have a label on it, of course, you know, but the question is, there's no law that says you need to recycle a mattress. So, I mean, how do you compel somebody to use a mattress recycler when it's perfectly legal and fine to just throw them away? And that's possibly, to me, if you don't know exactly what you're dealing with and you have a grant program and we have a study in place, it feels like maybe we should work down if you mandate it, right, they will come. Isn't that kind of the, I don't know if that was a question more than a statement, but.
Senator Clark.
Chair, Senator Lang, at this point, the laws regarding disposal of mattresses are only local. So it's, you know, what happens what does Olivia say needs to occur? What does Minneapolis say needs to occur? Whether you put it on, you know, dispose of it by putting it in the alley or you dispose of it by taking it to a local recycling facility, it is up to the individual consumer. And so this is an approach to attempt to create a market to make it easier to recycle.
So, and Mr. Chair,
Certainly.
maybe for council too, is there a law anywhere in the state of Minnesota that says we must recycle, we can't throw things away?
Council?
Mr. Chair, Senator Lang, I don't believe there is a statewide requirement to recycle mattresses. As Senator Clark said, it's possible there are local ordinances that require that in certain circumstances, but I just don't know.
I've got my fill of data. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And members, this bill will be laid over, so we may have another dab at it as well. Senator Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know for me, if I were to just set a mattress outside on my driveway, again, I live in the radical suburb of Minnetonka. I know it would sit there until it rotted away because my garbage hauler would not take it. But I just want to thank Senator Clark for this bill. I think it's fantastic. I think we have to get past the idea of things that we don't specifically charge for are somehow free for Public Works to take care of mattresses that are disposed of in any place other than a garbage facility or recycling facility. Our Public Works pays for that. And to be sure, there are many mattresses that are thrown about throughout the entire state, regardless of where they are, and it costs money to pick them up. We already know. We also know that our local governments, regardless of where they sit in the state, they pay for the cost of hauling them, tearing them apart, recycling them, or simply incinerating them. So we don't have room in our landfills anymore. This is an expensive thing, and I'm going to be asking to be added to the bill, but I think it's a very smart thing. I don't want to give TMI, but my husband and I have not replaced our mattress in decades, so I think, $5 a year, I mean, I can't remember the last time we bought a mattress. And so I think it's affordable, and I think it acknowledges that there are costs associated with waste. We all bear them, whether we think we do or not. So even though I haven't bought a mattress in years, I am paying for the cost through my taxes to dispose of mattresses because it's a real thing and garbage exists and our Public Works is responsible. So thank you, Senator Clark, and that's all I have to say.
Senator Green.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do have one more question, and that is that referenced earlier was the report from the LCCMR in 2023. So to the bill author or any of the testifiers, do you know if that was supposed to be done quite a while ago, almost a year ago now? Do you know if that report is done and just not released, or are they still working on it?
Mr. Chair and committee members, so we are the one operating that report or that program, and it is not complete yet. It is right now being considered for extension, and it will be complete later this year. So, but I will say that we are very pleased with the success that we have seen so far of the program.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Green.
You kind of faded out there, and I didn't hear what you said about when it'll be complete, but you're looking at 3 years. And so if you've got I'd like to find out when you said it would be complete, but I would like to know what you've got so far, if you're pleased with what you found. Do you have information that you can give us?
We would be happy to, Mr. Chair and committee members, we would be happy to share volume data and some of the insights that we've learned from activity throughout the state. Yes, but I do not have that right in front of me.
Okay, thank you. Senator Clark, any last comment before we lay this bill over?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee, for sort of helping keep this bill moving and making improvements that I will consider. And the questions that you've given, I will follow up with you, Senator Green, to get you the more data. So thank you for the consideration, Chair.
Senator Drukowski.
I've had my hand up multiple times, Mr. Chair.
I see. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So how is this bill going to get to the tax committee?
It's not moving yet until we refer. And it doesn't need to go to the tax committee.
Mr. Chair.
And as I stated, as layover, so it stay here until we have more discussion over it. And if you need to make any change or see any way to better this bill, do have conversation with Senator Clark offline. And then we can bring this bill back for another discussion.
Mr. Chair, it uses Chapter 297A and mentions the Department of Revenue and collects the tax and moves it through that system. It's very clear it should be in the tax committee. I would move that the bill be recommended to pass and referred to the tax committee.
Today?
Right now.
Okay.
Roll call, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We'll take, from my point of view as a chair, I don't think this bill it still needs some tweaking and it's not ready to be referred, but Senator McCune.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if council could to speak to the committee just very briefly on the point of the language of the bill or the reference to tax statute.
Council, Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, Senator McEwen, if the question is whether or not this bill, is the question whether or not this bill needs to go to the taxes committee or whether or not a motion to move it there is in order?
Senator McCune.
The question that I would have is, because of the language in the bill, would it be the normal practice of this body to send a bill like this to the tax committee?
Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, Senator McEwen, as Senator Drazkowski pointed out, this bill does reference the Department of Revenue and a tax chapter in statutes. And for that reason, we consulted with nonpartisan tax counsel, and they were of the view that because this is not changing anything in Chapter 297A or changing anything in any other tax statute, it is not required to go to the taxes committee.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Drukowski.
I would just point out to members that it directs the Department of Revenue to collect the tax. It directs retailers to put the tax on their receipts. And then it directs the Department of Revenue to distribute it to the special fund outlined in the bill on subdivision 3. So the Department of Revenue is very involved, and I can't understand how the tax committee would not be interested in it or why. But I'm on the tax committee, and we hear all kinds of bills that have this type of language in them regularly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drukowski. Just to note that the tax committee had not made a request for this bill to be heard. So, yes, but Senator Drukowski, all due respect, your motion is on. So there's a roll call request from Senator Drukowski, and so may we conduct the roll call.
Chair Her.
No.
Senator McEwen.
No.
Senator Green.
Yes.
Senator Drukowski.
Aye.
Senator House Child,
No.
Senator Hoffman, Senator Johnson Stewart,
No.
Senator Kunesh,
No.
Senator Lane,
Aye.
Senator Weisenberg. Senator Hoffman.
There's 4 yes and 5 no. Motion does not prevail. Okay, well, thank you. This bill is laid over. And then next on our, thank you, Senator Clark, for being here and deal with our discussion here. Senator Kunesh, you're good for your bill, or you? Thank you for your patience and waiting as well. So Senator Kunesh, welcome. Senator Kunesh bill is Senate File 3127, Rainwater Watch Program Appropriation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is to allocate dollars to the proven valuable program called River Watch, which is a hand-on experiential learning program operated by Friends of the Minnesota Valley for students, and it supports and has participation in 28 high schools and some of the middle schools. The Friends of the Minnesota Valley is requesting $150,000 for fiscal year 2027 to provide a River Watch program in the Minnesota River Basin and to expand the River Watch program into the Cannon River watershed in partnership with Clean River Partners. This program is modeled on a similar program operated in the Red River with, and that also receives or has received legislative fundings. These students in the 28 schools currently served receive direct classroom instruction, and that is aligned with samplings at the water's edge on rivers and streams in the Minnesota River Basin. 2 of the schools served by the by River Watch is All Nation program at South High in Minneapolis and American Indian and Hiawatha Academy, and then there's also charter schools. The Friends of the Minnesota Valley has arranged a partnership with Clean River Partners, which serves the Cannon River watershed in southeast Minneapolis, or Minnesota, and to provide the River Watch program to schools in that river, in that watershed, and we would like to continue. 100% of this legislative funding goes directly to the actual program costs. It is totally volunteer-driven. Educators test, and the test equipment and all of the consumable supplies are 100% funded through this. The Friends of the Minnesota Valley does not take any indirect cost allocation or charge any organization expenses to this legislative appropriation. And so, Mr. Chair, I have a A2 amendment that just corrects, allocates the dollars and then asks for those dollars to come from the general fund and reminds us that this is a one-time appropriation and puts in the correct year.
Yep. Senator Kunesh has the A2 amendment. Is it coming around? Senator Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, it's a real easy one, is why? It seems as though, I'm pretty familiar with the River Watch program, supported it in the past many times. It seems to me putting in the general fund would make it significantly more difficult to get funded. I'm just looking for what's the reasoning?
Senator Kunesh.
So I don't believe that there is going to be funding in the Clean Water Fund this year, and so we're asking to take it from the general fund.
Senator Lane, does that answer you?
Boy. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that might be a Senate staff question, yeah.
Yeah, before, we move forward, just to note that this is also another bill that will be laid over.
Well, then maybe my question is null and void until we figure it out, but.
Thank you.
So, let's see. In front of us is the A2 amendment by Senator Kunesh. All in favor of Senator Kunesh A2 amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail. So the bill is as it is. And any question towards Senator Kunesh, or let's have the testifier introduce yourself and present.
Mr. Chair, my name is Ted Suss. I'm the President and Executive Director, unpaid, of the Friends of the Minnesota Valley. Partially in answer to Senator Lang's question, I personally screwed up last year. I didn't get to the legislature early enough to get the bill drafted back from the revisor's office in time for your committee deadline. Otherwise, we would have been here last year for a 2-year appropriation for twice the amount of money. We ran the program this year out of our cash reserves, and quite frankly, we are at 0 cash reserves. We cannot run the program another year without a legislative appropriation.
Okay. Any question for Senator Kunesh? And appreciate your time and appreciate everyone. We lay Senate File 3127 for lay over Senate File 3127.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Senator Weber. Senator Weber's bill is Senate File 2442, outdoor use of rainwater and stormwater provision. And then we also had a number of testifiers, so our 2-minute rules is again kick in. Welcome, Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, I believe there is the A26 amendment.
Senator,
Okay. Yes.
I move the A26. Senator.
Senator Ann Johnson Stewart moved the A26 amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion prevailed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Members, you've heard this bill before, and so I'll be brief today. The purpose of this bill is to help with in terms of our reasonable and responsible water management, conservation, and innovation. The reality of it is that we use many, many gallons of water every year for irrigation purposes, and whether it's a homeowner's lawn, a business property's lawn, or golf course, there are a lot of gallons of water that get used. And as this bill then would allow the usage of stormwater and collected rainwaters to be used for that purpose. And one of the things of the amendment is that it took it from a prescriptive format, and instead of having that communities must allow it, they may allow it, and so it also verified that this section does not apply or affect the use of rainwater for the purposes of agricultural activities. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would turn it over to the testifiers.
Okay, welcome, and state your name for the record.
My name is Jeff Lateral. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and thank you, Senator Weber, for introducing the bill. Again, my name is Jeff Lateral. I'm with Heritage Landscape Supply. We are a green industry distributor in the state of Minnesota, specializing in irrigation equipment sales and support. Heritage Landscape Supply is a member of the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association. I currently serve on the board of directors of the association and also serve in its Committee on Water Resources. My testimony today is in favor of Senate File 2442. I have been in the irrigation landscape industry since 1982. I am a certified irrigation designer and certified landscape irrigation auditor. I have been involved with many HOA stormwater projects over the years. A few examples would be the Hollydale community in Plymouth, the Watercrest community in Hugo, and the Talamore community in Woodbury. I've also seen the impact of technology and the evolution of irrigation equipment. This would include the pressure regulation of sprinkler heads, which are recommended by the EPA WaterSense. This is a proposal that will alleviate the use of potable water resources and will continue to lead us in the path of conservation, innovation, and sustainability. There is no reason why we should be using municipal water in large quantities for irrigation and outdoor purposes. We can efficiently use rainwater. As mentioned before, several localities and organizations have recognized the environmental and sustainable benefits of reusing storm and rainwater. The Minneapolis Sculpture Garden, the Woodbury Sundance Committee, the Lakes Community in Blaine, and the St. Paul Fire Station Green Roof are a few more examples of projects currently using stormwater for outdoor purposes. This proposal will help save billions of gallons of municipal water and will reduce the urgency of developing communities to spend millions of dollars to expand water infrastructure. I respectfully ask for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next is Mr. Washhouse. Do state your name for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Tim Malooly, and I'd like to start by thanking Senator Weber for bringing this proposal to the committee. My remarks today are in support of Senate File 2442. I've been in the irrigation and water resource consulting and engineering industry for 45 years and hold several credentials and licenses. I was the humble recipient of the first ever U.S. EPA WaterSense Partner of the Year recognition for innovation in the efficient use of water resources. I'm president of 3 Twin Cities-based outdoor-related companies employing approximately 50 people, furnishing landscape irrigation design and engineering services, installation, and maintenance. My companies are members of the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association, a 1,400-member company organization representing approximately 42,000 green industry employees throughout the state. Through my businesses, I'm directly or indirectly responsible for the use of hundreds of millions of gallons of water annually, and I take the responsibility seriously. This includes a share of the millions of landscape irrigation systems across the United States that draw water from lakes and rivers. Senate File 2442 is a common sense piece of legislation that addresses responsible environmental action, responsible use of precious resources, and sustainability in the planning and maintenance of our developed communities. Approximately 15 years ago, a group of stakeholders hosted by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency via a legislative grant formed the Minimal Impact Design Standards Work Group, who developed and published the Minnesota Stormwater Manual, a low-impact development planning guide that has become highly regarded across the U.S. as a unique and effective tool. The guide, which lists landscape irrigation as a stormwater management best practice, has become a key document to several Minnesota government entities, including watershed districts and cities, and by engineers and developers when planning land development and redevelopment. Low-impact development is a stormwater management approach that seeks to mimic nature's hydrologic cycle. It emphasizes conservation and the use of on-site natural features to protect water quality. Low-impact development systems and practices allow for the processing of rainwater and stormwater on the land where it falls via infiltration, evapotranspiration, and constructed mechanisms such as green roofs, bioretention gardens, permeable pavement, and landscape irrigation. Since the codification of low-impact development in Minnesota and the publication of the Minnesota Stormwater Guide, there has been an expansion of landscape irrigation systems as rainwater or stormwater best practices, and it can serve 2 primary purposes: effectively processing large volumes of stormwater on site and as a horticultural tool to help maintain a healthy landscape and reduce stress on potable water resources.
Mr. Maloney, if you can conclude.
Yes, sir. I'll let you know that very quickly. There are several systems that have been installed that might be notable to you, including Waterworks Park in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden, the Commons Park at U.S. Bank Stadium, Target Field, CHS Field, Allianz Field, and the Spirit of Branch and Farm community as an example of one of the largest stormwater reuse irrigation systems in the state. Thank you for your time. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I'd like to call, I think I recall his name already, but welcome back and state your name for the record.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you. My name is Rob Wachholz. I'm a real estate developer. My background is in housing, mixed-use development, and larger-scale master plan communities primarily. Just a little over a quarter of a century ago, at additional cost to the development project, I initiated the objective to implement a water reuse irrigation system to service a nearly 300-acre 1,000-unit community here in Minnesota. With the design assistance of capable engineers and water use professionals like one Tim Maloney here, the system was installed, has been successfully operated since, and replicated in subsequent Minnesota developments, large and small, by me and others. Arguably, the most significant and impactful stormwater reuse in this state has occurred without fanfare in the ordinary course of development approval by local officials, by roll-up-the-sleeve practitioners earnestly seeking to be responsible and respectful of resource. Water resource in this case, but this is true also for aggregate, timber, the myriad of other regulated inputs necessary and needed for development. The use of rainwater, stormwater, for irrigation is not a new phenomenon, and in other places is routinely used. We really shouldn't need a law to ensure the permission to consider it, but that is the circumstance our industry finds itself in. So in conclusion, my testimony is this: you can't be serious about helping to make housing in particular affordable, more affordable, when even the most time-tested, simply logical thing to do is regulated, restricted, or mandated to the extremes of possibility. I can assure you nothing dulls the initiative needed and the innovation required to improve the general welfare of man and of the environment than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have Mr. Randy Neprosh in the house? Yes, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Randy Neprosh. I'm a retired civil engineer, been staff for the Minnesota Cities Stormwater Coalition for more than 20 years. MCSC's membership includes more than 100 of the cities in the state that are regulated under the MS4 stormwater permitting program. MCSC opposes 2442 because it endangers public health, preempts local stormwater controls, and will cause confusion and make local control of stormwater reuse more difficult for cities. Here's what we know now. Stormwater in constructed ponds contains multiple pollutants of concern, including bacteria, viruses, and chemicals. It is an environmental and human health hazard. Some treatment of stormwater from constructed ponds is appropriate and necessary to make this water safe for reuse. We have multiple pathways of exposure for the public that are of concern, including drinking, swimming, and agriculture, but also inhalation and ingestion. Regulated cities and design engineers need well-informed and sophisticated guidance on how to safely use stormwater from constructed stormwater ponds for reuse. As amended, this bill is at best almost meaningless. It will, though, add confusion and ambiguity to these technical issues and make local control of stormwater reuse more difficult. Instead of this bill, we ask that you support the process to develop useful guidance for cities and professionals and to continue to support the research work in this area. We do not understand why the development of this guidance has been stalled. MCSC opposes SF 2442. We urge legislators to encourage MDH and MPCA to move ahead with the stakeholder process to develop appropriate guidance for stormwater reuse. We strongly recommend that you oversee the agencies closely to make sure that this process is restarted and that it moves ahead to conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Members, in your handout, you also have written testimony from Minnesota City Storm Coalition, Minnesota Pipe Trades Association, and Freshwaters. Also, just for you to note is that this bill will be referred to the Health and Human Services Committee. So with that, any questions? Senator Johnson-Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Malooly, please. So, Mr. Malooly, as you approach, I just have a question, how this might work if we do approve this bill and it becomes law. I read in Section 1, it says that political subdivision may allow using untreated rainwater or stormwater for outdoor purposes when the probability of consumption or immersion by humans or animals is low or non-existent. So I want to point out, it says may and low or non-existent. And my question is, if you wanted to, in fact, implement this in one of your projects, would you need permission as part of your permit, or how would it actually work that the city would determine if the probability is low or non-existent, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Malooly.
Like, is it just carte blanche, or do you have to go for approval every time, or would this be something that would just be a blanket approval, is my question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Johnson-Stewart, and members of the committee. The bill does not seek to offer blanket approval. The bill seeks to minimize confusion throughout the state, especially in greater Minnesota, among those that have the decisions before them of what means and mechanisms are available to them to manage stormwater and low-impact development goals and objectives. The idea here is to enable them to understand that this is a practice that is widely undertaken and is available to them to consider. If a permit is required in their locality or on a particular project, that would be their choice. If a permit is not required on a project, that would also be their choice. The previous bill had an accident of language that was an honest accident of language that has been corrected by amendment to enable the communities to understand that they may consider these if they choose to, these options in this Minnesota Stormwater Guide. This particular option has been discussed for many years. There was a previous testifier indicated that there's a process that has stalled. I understand that approach and agree that there has been an ongoing process. It appears to have been stalled, but indeed there have been many occasions over the last 15 years of coming together to discuss these topics. Unfortunately, to date, no one has been able to, out of the two departments that were mentioned, assemble any credible reason why these systems should fall under any sort of special circumstance for special filtration or special treatment beyond that of what's commonly done today in Minnesota all over the state, which is drawing from lakes and rivers to irrigate landscapes.
Senator Johnson-Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Malooly. I just want to point out that I think it's important that we're giving local agencies, local governments, the ability to say no. This is just a may, that they may approve it, and that it certainly is requiring that they do so judiciously. They see that the consumption or immersion by humans or animals is low or non-existent. And I just want to thank Senator Weber for including me on this bill. I think it's important, and I think it's timely. And given that I would say the vast majority of our local water distribution systems are severely overtaxed, it just doesn't make sense for us to be irrigating with water that's been treated. Removing some of that load from our local water systems, I think, is a smart thing. And so also as a civil engineer, as a licensed civil engineer, I feel comfortable that this is something that I feel strongly about is within a reasonable standard of care. And so I would encourage a yes vote. And thank you, Senator Weber.
And Senator Johnson-Stewart, we have someone that could also give you a little more detailed answer to your question as well. And if we can call the League of Minnesota City, Mr. Craig Johnson. Welcome. And he's paying attention to your question, so anytime, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Craig Johnson with the League of Minnesota Cities. Asked to come up in response to the, I think, excellent question that Senator Johnson-Stewart just asked. But the League of Minnesota Cities is the sponsor entity for the Minnesota City Stormwater Coalition, who you already heard the concerns from. We have been working for years to get stormwater reuse to be a functional thing, and there are legitimate public health concerns that need to be addressed as part of that we have worked very, very hard with the Pollution Control Agency and the Department of Health to develop. That was the request you heard from MCSC, is that process needs to be continued and wrapped up. Right now, if this bill was passed, city officials would have to make the judgment on whether that reuse was likely to cause public health. And once they've made that determination, they're the ones liable if someone gets sick because they didn't have the right information. So that is why we are concerned about this moving forward and think it would very much complicate city stormwater management and would put us in a position of being liable for something we don't have the science to make a sound decision on at this point.
Senator, Mr. Chair.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember that answer last year when we talked about this, and I'm wondering what's taking so long. So let's chop. Like, can you explain the process to me, please?
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I am not in any way in control of that process. That is the Department of Health and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and it's an ongoing process they have had that is currently not moving forward.
Okay, and Senator Wiesenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I forget your name, sir?
Malooly.
Malooly. So I guess I don't know, I have two questions. So one is like in these stormwater ponds in cities, is this like where you think where there's a pond in a development and there's cattails and things growing in it? Are we asking to use that water? For Mr. Malooly?
Mr. Chair, Senator, members of the committee, the short answer is yes, that might be one source of water that would be used.
Okay, and the reason I asked that, thank you, Mr. Chair, is cattails and these wetland plants are literally nature's sponges that take all the crap out of the water. So the water's getting clean then because there's cattails in those ponds, so that water's safe to use. That would be my comment, but that's what cattails do. I have another question for Senator Weber. If I remember, I was speaking with somebody maybe in the city of Minneapolis or somewhere. It sounds like some places need a permit or not. They're not even allowed to collect rainwater from their homes and use it. Do you know if that's correct?
Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Wiesenberg, I don't know what the city of Minneapolis requirements are. There are communities, I know, for example, the community in which my daughter lives, that rain barrels are present, that they're allowed to collect rainwater. What the city of Minneapolis does, I do not know.
Senator Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Weber. I said city of Minneapolis. I don't know if it was that one for sure, but from my understanding, does it sound like they needed a permit or something to collect rainwater, or they can't put it on their lawn, which is stupid to me. It can flow off your roof and onto the lawn, but I can't collect it in a bucket and then put it on my lawn. So if that's happening, that's just asinine. Thank you.
Any question from members? Oh, Senator McHugh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page with the path for this bill. And my understanding is that it does now have to proceed to Health and Human Services, and then also we may want it to go to labor as well, just to address any concerns about it in that committee as well. So I also I'm a co-author on this bill. I'm a big fan of this concept, and I would really love to see it move forward and iron out the concerns that may still exist. And I'm comfortable today moving forward with it and trust that people will keep working on it as it goes through the process. So thank you very much for bringing the bill.
Okay. Senator Weber, you may give us a little conclusion to this bill, and we'll re-refer the bill forward.
Very good. Thank you much, Mr. Chair. I would simply say to those who talk about the health concerns, and I recognize this bill is scheduled to go to HHS, in the conversations that the Landscapers Association have had with the Department of Health, the Department of Health continues to mention that, but they've never been able to seem to provide any type of concrete evidence of what type of health concerns are there. As we look at what is happening, I think we see stormwater ponds continuing to pop up as a more and more common design in developments, whether it's entire neighborhoods, whether it's road projects, you name it, and even in rural Minnesota, we see a great larger number of these type of storage ponds coming about, and for stormwater retention. And the reality of it is that in many of these communities, we also have drinking water shortages. In my early years in the Senate, I carried legislation to assist in the development of the Lewis and Clark regional water system because, quite frankly, in my area, number one, we don't have a great number of lakes we have no lakes in my home county, and we have very shallow and low producing wells. And so water is a premium, and as is most of my communities. And quite frankly, being able to utilize these types of water sources would be of great benefit to local communities. It always amazes me one of the catchwords that we hear up here today is affordability. Affordability in a number of areas, and yet when we come to items that, quite frankly, we can help and bring the cost down, it seems like there's always someone that's objecting to it. And so I would encourage the committee to pass this bill along so that we may indeed bring it to a successful conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Webbers. Senator Ann Johnson-Stewart, would you move that we refer this bill, Senate File 242, to the Health and Human Services Committee?
So moved.
As amended?
As amended.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail. Thank you, and good luck, Senator Weber. Okay, this is all our agenda today, and stay tuned, check on your email on the next meeting and any other announcement. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.